And here we go. So welcome. We're meeting with MP3J Sark.
Rolls
Kind of
right
a
off the tongue.
mouthful to
So
try
good.
and say.
I
I
think part
like
of the
the
fun is watching other people try to say it. Is not
yeah
these days on Twitch.
yeah
Yeah. I'll throw bits or cheer somebody or tip somebody just to be like, okay, say it. You know.
yeah. MP3J
Yeah.
Sark. Yep. I mean, that's a nice play.
It when I knew people who were old school or who are old school vinyl
Mm,
DJs. I know people who DJ off of CD decks. I mean that's been the standard for a long time. But
mhm.
I always felt like when I first started, I did everything on my laptop, and I didn't have any gear. I was already a computer nerd, so I was like, oh, I can run two instances of Winamp with a crossfader, and whatever. And
Yeah.
and I thought about it for a while, and I went, I really like and respect DJs. I don't feel like I'm a DJ. I don't necessarily want to use that term because I don't feel like I really live up to it in that way. I don't have those technical skills, and I don't have the physical acumen to be able to do a lot of the stuff that actual vinyl DJs do. So what am I? And I was running PC DJ on my laptop at the time, and I didn't have a controller; it was just all keyboard and mouse. And one of my favorite movies is Tron, so
Ah,
I was like, well, I'm not really a DJ. I'm more of an MP3J, and the program does all the work. So
yeah.
I'm like this. I like where this is going, and it just kind of came together.
If I'd known that, I would have worn one of my Tron shirts.
You're like, there is the connection.
Ah.
That's all right. We're both wearing black. It's a start. I mean, that's kind of how everything starts with the goth scene. So,
Yeah.
you know, like I don't know that person, but damn it, we're both on the subway train and we're both all wearing completely black clothes. So there's got to be
Yeah.
something, right?
And there's probably a patch or a button somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
That little secret, that secret symbol.
Right, right. There's something somewhere. There's a
Yeah.
sister's lapel pin or, something.
Like on my backpack, when I go into campus teach, I have a little Millennium Falcon hanging on the back of
Nice, nice. The discerning eye will note.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So one thing I noticed looking at your Twitch profile, you describe yourself using 4 terms: village idiot, fearless leader, quiet loner, and raving lunatic. Is that all at once? Does it rotate? Is there one that's
It has
dominates?
more frequently than I would care to admit been all at once, more than a few times. Um, the fearless leader thing came from I was doing an alternative karaoke club in Los Angeles called Ground Control, and it ran for like it doesn't even feel like it or seem like it, but it ran for like 10 years. Um, I started doing it over at the venue where Dust Bunker most recently was over at the Jules Catch One, and got to know the owner there and her wife and hear her history, and decided I, I've been working in clubs, industrial clubs, for a long, long time. So in LA, there used to be a club called Control Factory, and the promoter for Control Factory really took me kind of under his wing, gave me my first computer, my first 286, you know, um, my first install stack of Windows 3.1 disks,
Yeah.
and he taught me a lot. I learned a lot about design and just about promoting. But his thing was do something, do something different, do something original. Don't do the same shit everybody else is doing. There's and it rang true to this day that there's enough, like, to me, there's enough goth and industrial clubs in LA that I'd rather, for a long time my thing was always, instead of starting my own thing, I'm going to go find a club that I like and offer my services to them, support
Mhm.
them, back them, and help promote them,
Right.
rather than try to start one more club and divide the pie up another 35th of a slice.
Right.
So when it came time to start doing stuff, I came up with karaoke. I thought, well, what's fun, but what can I do that nobody, like, I want to do like something in the scene, but I want to do something nobody else is doing, and I want to do something fun. I want to watch goth kids laugh. Karaoke, you know. And I had never done karaoke before, so a friend of mine took me to karaoke for my first time because I didn't want to be one of those guys that I'm running a karaoke club, I don't do karaoke. So Got myself up there, did it. Seemed fun enough. Got together with a friend of mine, and we started chewing on a really good alternative music, like old goth and stuff like that. We're like, none of this stuff exists in karaoke form. So we tried, I learned how to devocalize stuff. And so, some of it worked. Some of it's very imperfect science trying to strip vocals back out of music, especially when you have a lot of vocal effects, like every industrial song. So I learned how to do editing, very, very low level cut and paste editing of industrial songs to, be able to paste over vocal parts with instrumental parts and rebuild tracks that way. So we started making tracks, and we had Bauhaus tracks, and we had Front 242 tracks, and we had Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and all kinds of stuff that wasn't out yet. So it was a lot of fun to do, and started getting friends from the club scene, and then started getting friends, people that I didn't know who were coming in from like stage performer scene, stand-up comedians,
Hmm.
people that normally are used to being up on a stage, but they never found music that their particular bent was, dark alternative music, and they never found any place they could do karaoke at with that.
Oh yeah.
So I did that for a long time, and my patrons just started calling me Fearless Leader. It was a very cute term of endearment for a long time, just because I would be like, all right, we're all together. Let's do a thing. Let's do a fundraiser for we did the women's shelter. Let's do a fundraiser for the clinic that Jewel runs. She does a lot of like neighborhood work, in the local community.
Hmm.
Let's do a fundraiser for LA Food Bank. Let's do, whatever. I mean, like there's only a handful of us, but where that's enough to put together something. If you donate $10 to a shelter, it made it seem like a drop in the bucket to you, but that's a meal for somebody.
Right. Right.
That's a pair of socks, and it's hope for somebody. So, we could take all that change. I'm like, the nice thing is, I never made so much at it that I ever felt like I'm going to lose out on profit from this. It never really
Hmm.
profited in that level. So I'm like, if I can raise $100 for something, awesome. I raised $100 for something. It's really cool. So that's where that came from. I'll try not to be long-winded in my explanations of the terms, but yeah, the Fearless Leader one is it's always been it gets me a little sappy when I think about it, because
Oh, okay.
of where it comes from.
Yeah.
The other ones, the other descriptors just felt they felt accurate. This between the being the I've always felt that it's the two sides of the same coin: the village idiot and the fearless leader.
Yeah.
Sometimes people confuse one for the other, which is the best part.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, the a leader can sometimes be so far ahead of their time they seem like an idiot, right?
Hmm.
Kind of
Hmm.
like the idea that future technology seems like magic, kind of,
Right,
right?
right. And,
Kind of the same.
completely apropos of nothing. Sometimes people put a leader, an idiot in charge of stuff, and things go wrong. So, you know, sometimes I'm that idiot.
But so you've already talked about music, but the question I always ask to really get things going is, what does music mean to you?
Uh, it's that same nebulous answer that you've probably gotten from a lot of people. It's a lot. It was, oh boy, it was a way. I mean, it always starts for a lot of us, especially in our scene, as a way to hide from things, to get away, as to find some solace somewhere, to find some refuge in something. I think we touched a little bit on this offline, but
Hmm.
coming up from an abusive, childhood, an abusive home, and just having a really rough life. My parents, when I was growing up, my parents were really hardcore outlaw bikers. I don't know if I told you. I don't think you knew anything about this. Like the bad kind of bikers,
Oh, yeah.
and so there was a lot. It was a very interesting way to grow up, and I grew up
Mm,
um, very nerdy and a pacifist.
mm,
So uh, The best way I was able to describe it to a friend was it was like being a Klingon scientist. You know, Klingon scientists are considered to be the lowest tier
Yeah.
of Klingon society as far as, like you're never going to die heroically. You have no merit. You're not a warrior. Blah blah blah. And it was so music for me was really in my childhood. It was really hiding away from that and kind of you know uh, Electric Light Orchestra was a big favorite for me
Yeah.
because it was this whole like their album imagery. Them in Boston, they had this whole sci-fi album imagery that just really immersed me, swept me away, and then the music was very rich, but also very uplifting and also very poppy. So
Yeah.
it resonated on a lot of levels for me, and it was my escape. And then going into junior high school and into the high school era, uh, I really kind of wound up settling in with the heavy metal crowd. Not necessarily because I love metal, although by virtue of being raised by bikers, you learn to like a lot of hard rock.
Yeah.
Um, it was the at the very least the visual imagery of it resonated with me. Leather. I got a leather jacket and black jeans and boots. Here we go. I've got the clothes for this. All the guys look big and scary and rough, and I'm like, all right, this is my comfort zone. I grew up in this.
Right.
Uh, these guys don't really know what it means to be big and scary and do all this stuff. They play at it, so I'm not. It's not threatening for me. Even as rough and rowdy as the parties would get, I'm like, this is not a. I've been as a child been home with 300 bikers partying in and around the house, on
Wow.
property.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting crazy and shooting guns and breaking things and being loud and scary. I'm like, heavy metal backyard party, piece of cake. So, but even then, I never really felt at home. But it was kind of a go-to for safety. It gave some backbone when I
Mhm.
needed it. The themes and the lyrics. Lyrics are always been a big thing for me.
Right.
Um, so lyrically, there was always that rah rah, that push. And then out of I was a late bloomer for clubs. Coming out of high school, uh, going into my early 20s and going to my first goth club, which was
Oh,
also
yeah.
my first nightclub, which was also
Mm.
an underground club at the time, back in the early 90s. And I had no idea. These were guys that I met before, didn't like, ran into them again at a friend's birthday party years later, out of the blue. Started talking to. Turns out they also like D&D, so we started playing D&D together. And they
Yeah.
were like, "Hey, we're going out to a club after this. What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, "I've never been to a club. This should be interesting." So, next scene, there's me, a case of Miller Genuine Draft in my system. Because we didn't know how to drink in high school as heavy metal guys. You drank shit. You just drank as much as possible until you threw up,
Right.
and then you drank some more. So I'm shithouse, and I'm there in my leather jacket and my slash knee blue jeans, and my blue leopard skin high top Vans,
Mm.
and my great white shirt, and in the middle of this goth club, and and it's totally underground, so it's like nobody checks your ID. I was drunk when I got there. Like my friends virtually had to carry me in when I got there. And it blew me away. I was just like, this is really cool. Like the music I'd never heard before.
Mm.
And it was it, there was a lot of that intersection of goth and death rock. The punkier aspect of it's a
Right.
little bit harder. Immediately fell in love with Sisters of Mercy. Immediately, uh, and I was just like, this is really cool. And I'm watching. I'm like, yeah, there's guys in makeup and skirts and fingernail polish and big hair, and everybody's being nice, and I like this. And then somebody came in and had said, hey, I started I see somebody come in, start talking to somebody at the door, and then I see people start filing out the front door, and I'm like, oh, the cops or something? They're like, no, some dude's getting attacked in the parking lot. So one of the goth guys was in the parking lot, underground parking lot, trying to get out of his car, and a couple of jackasses were starting to fuck with him.
Mm.
And so here's all these dudes pouring out of a club in skirts and makeup,
Right. Right.
chasing these guys down the street. And I'm like, I like this.
Yeah.
This is I could make a home here. This is my kind of people right here. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And so it was great. And that's when I started getting into that side of things. And that, uh, a lot of the time, I think, if you do the math, for me, I did the math on it and thought, you know what, the lyrics in this music are more cerebral, and they appeal to me in that way. Um, they're very, evocative of emotion,
Hmm.
which I really was so full of at the time for so many different reasons that,
Yeah.
it was overwhelming. And so I'm like, okay, this strikes on emotions that I don't normally have to deal with in music, and it really feels good, but in a good way. At
Right.
least I feel uh, sympathetic. I feel empathy and sympathy. I feel like this speaks to me and to those parts of me that other music and other people don't speak to me yet.
Big contrast to what you were used to.
Huge contrast, huge. And so I started getting into that, and I still, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much, and that's when I started going to clubs. But I really still kind of felt like standing on the outside. And I had started going to DeVry to my first attempt at getting an electronics engineering degree.
Mhm.
And one of the guys there, turns out he's local. He was into industrial music, of which I knew nothing about.
Mm.
So we jumped in his car and I went to my first industrial club. And I got in, I paid my cover, I walked in, and I stood there for maybe about 5 minutes and just started crying. And
Oh,
he's
wow.
like, dude, you're all right? I'm like, I'm home.
Yeah.
Like, you don't
Yeah.
understand. I have never in my entire life felt like I was home. I'm like, these are
Yeah.
my people. There's guys in fucking mohawks and jackboots sitting there talking about, programming. I'm
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
didn't know this was a thing, but
Right.
these are my people. I never felt like I had people before. And
Yeah.
I think that's what makes it easy for me to want to do stuff for people, because just at the very least out of gratitude. Because some people fall into it and they're like, oh yeah, it's cool. I got into music and I just started going out and blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, for me it's a big part of my life.
Oh, yeah. Well,
So,
that's definitely true with everybody that I've interviewed so far. It's been,
mhm.
it's central. Obviously, I mean, they're they're DJing on
Right. They,
Twitch,
they must have liked the music,
so
I guess.
there's something to it,
Mhm.
and they're not like just out of college, so
Right.
they've been doing
Right.
it for a while. But what you mentioned about feeling like you're home when you walked in that club, that's something that is, I think, happening a lot on Twitch.
Oh yeah.
Is that right? People are getting into one stream or another, and it's like, I'm home.
Hmm.
It doesn't have that full atmosphere that you
Right.
get from being in an actual physical location, but
Hmm.
it still has that mental and emotional
I
belonging.
feel, yeah, no, absolutely. And I feel, I actually was thinking about this recently, and it's a mixed blessing for me. I have mixed feelings
Mm.
about it. I love it. I love that, I know that feeling, and I love that somebody will come in to, watching Stars, Star Noir's stream before we started.
Mhm.
And somebody would come in and they're just like, I've never seen it before. And I don't know if they'd ever been in the channel before. They're like, yeah, I just had a rough day, and so it's really nice to hear the music. Have a really bad time. Usually, if somebody comes in out of the blue, there's something wrong. You
Mhm.
know, so a little bit of talking, not really poking and prodding, but just kind of being friendly to leave the door open. And it turned out that they lost a relative to COVID. You
Mm.
know, and they're just now dealing with that and processing it. And
Right.
so, we all proceeded to continue to be even dumber and goofier than we normally are, in the hopes of cheering this person up,
Yeah.
and Stars playing music and taking requests, and everybody's just being really nice. And that person was like, you guys don't know how badly I needed this. So I love that that can be a thing. I love that we can do that. And that might happen on any
Mhm.
kind of stream for any kind of music. But for us, and the way that I really feel like uh, on some level it always seems to be that way, and it didn't always used to be that way to me. It wasn't necessarily uh, welcoming. There was a feeling of accepting, but there wasn't
Mhm.
necessarily a feeling of welcoming when I first started going out to clubs, because they were dark
Okay.
and scary, spooky places and
Yeah.
underground, illegal venues and all that. So everybody there was always just kind of like, looking
Right.
at each other like suspiciously. So
Yeah.
But nobody's going to judge you. Nobody's going to judge you for anything. So you could be whoever you wanted and whatever you wanted. But by the same token, it's like, well, but I don't know you. Nowadays, I think there's a stronger sense of community, so we're
Mhm.
also more welcoming to people. In
Right,
some
but
ways.
you say there's also a negative side.
The negative side to me is, and I do have a very strong sense of cynicism about some things, and I think that I have not been, I've yet to be disappointed by the failure of human nature. Let's put it that way. So I think that what we have is we're connecting with people, but we're not seeing the person, we're not dealing with the person face to face.
Hmm.
And within that, there's no body language to really communicate with. So we're losing a lot of bandwidth of communication by
Right,
only dealing in
right,
text. There's so much more to it. There's every other sense gets triggered. I mean, except taste, unless you walk up and lick the person first. But everything literally, your sense of smell, your sight, hearing, the way, the tone of a person's voice, their body language, all of that comes into play, and it helps you get to know a person and to understand the meaning behind what they're saying, the intent behind what they're saying.
right,
We don't see we will only see each other in the briefest of moments in passing textually, without knowing anybody's history, without getting to know anybody's history. And it takes a lot more effort to really get somebody's background
mm,
out. If nobody watches this, most people will never know this much about me if they only go to
right,
the stream. So this is the kind of stuff that normally only comes out after we've been sitting at the bar and hanging out and
exactly.
relaxing and getting to know each other and getting to trust each other. Uh,
Well,
so I
if you
fear
do
that
spend
there's a lot
enough
of
time, if you spend enough time in a channel, you do start to get to know people. Right.
You do.
Yeah.
I think it in some ways it does take longer. I think sometimes uh, uh, the more extreme parts of a person come out in text, right away, and then you start filling in the blanks between there. But
Yeah.
for the most part, like you don't know somebody's history, you don't really know them that well. There are
Right.
people that I only see at Wasteland Weekend. There are people that I only see at Burning Man. And while I might love them and respect them there, I don't know what their history is. I don't know what
Mhm.
they're really like. I don't know if this is a persona or a facade that they put on when they're around me because I don't know them well enough. I don't have
Yeah.
time outside of that environment to really get to know them. So, and I've seen people, and we see it in media. People
Hmm.
very much come across one way. We see it every election where people will come out with the most sincere and devout lip service to these really profoundly humanitarian things, and then nothing comes of it because that was the campaign face. So
Right.
I don't know who's got their campaign face on and who doesn't. We don't really know each other in that way. So I try to I'm one of those people that rush in, fools rush in where angels fear to tread, and
Mhm.
emotionally I want to love people, so I rush in to love people. And so I've been trying to temper that with
Yeah.
a more pragmatic approach to things. As
Well,
we talked a little bit about this earlier, the one of the symptoms of different types of mental illness is rushing into relationships too deeply, too
mm,
fast, really getting to know somebody. So
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I was going to say, you mentioned you don't know somebody's history, but that could also be a positive. That doesn't, um, you
You're not
know,
judging them. It doesn't taint your vision of them beforehand.
right, exactly. I mean, you're seeing them at least who they want you
Hmm.
to, how they want you to see them right now,
There's,
which could very well be something that they're, working on changing, right?
you know what? I absolutely agree with that because I know that for myself, I know what I've done and I know what I'm capable of as far
Hmm.
as like my bad side. But I also know that a lot of the time, and from promoting clubs, from DJing, from being up and behind a microphone on a
Hmm.
stage in front of people, uh, I will often project who I want to be and not necessarily who I am. I try to present what I aspire to be,
Hmm.
and that's sometimes I won't say it's not sincere. Sometimes it's not honest, but it's sincere. There's
Yeah.
I may not be that good of a person, but if I this is I kind of I'm putting in front of me, I'm
Mhm.
presenting to you who I could hope to be, who I
Yeah.
as good a person as I want to be. I may not always be that person, but for that 5 minutes, I want to be that for you, and I want you to take that and go somewhere and do something with it.
Right. It's real life role playing.
Yeah, very much,
Yeah.
very much.
As one of the things that Poe talked about, I believe, in our interview was the impact of comics and teaching right from wrong, right?
Oh yeah,
So, I mean, there's certainly some parallels there between how you know, what you're talking about here with how people may portray themselves, right? To
I I
also
would
being very complex, right?
yeah I would say I would go you one further and say that that's this one of the oldest things that forms of communication or techniques of communication. It's the oldest. It's something that we go back to when we look at cave drawings,
Right.
telling a story. We tell stories. You know, um, that's our most. That's the first. That was our first method of profound communication. More so probably than trying to directly convey things. Telling a story. You tell a story of the hunt. You tell the story of your children. You tell the story of the season.
Hmm.
You tell the story of your people. You don't necessarily, you may not be able to communicate insight on your feelings and who you are internally until you get somebody to understand those things. So we tell stories. Um, Coincidentally, my friend who was in that group of the first people to take me to my first club ever, he went on to his one of his degrees was he had a minor in Chicano studies, and part of that was he did a paper on totemic ritual and how it relates in from ancient cultures to now,
Mm.
and wearing a mask and performing rituals and things like that. What the significance of it and how it moves generationally. And we look at one of my favorite things in the world is professional wrestling.
Mm.
Love professional wrestling. But you look at the old luchadors and you look from the farthest, the history of that storytelling. It's the oldest story in the world, good versus evil, and it's told over and over again in different iterations.
Mm.
And we put on different masks, we put on different costumes. And every fucking movie you see, every song you hear, everything that is done in art has some element of that story in it. It's
Yeah.
such a prevalent story, and so this is the story that we tell. We put on the masks and we perform, and there's that public persona that's there's a part of me. I'm normally a loud person, but there's a part of me that's much louder than life. When I get in front of people, that I'm not necessarily that. It's me turned up to 11 and projecting emotionally as well as vocally. Um, but it's that character, and you tell a story with that character, and so we do
Yeah.
that. We try to do that to be when we're not that character, we're ourselves, and that's who we are in the world. But then when we put on that character, it's something that we're trying to put out into the world. So
Well, that kind of leads me to segue into what originally got me to want to interview you, and that is part of one of the things that you do in your streams is you intentionally play music from people of color,
mhm.
right? So it's kind of a segue in that you're something you're projecting here, right? Is that there's diversity in music.
Absolutely. Well, in our scene, as far as like the dark side music, the goth stuff, industrial stuff,
Hmm.
a lot along those lines. Um, I it's an old habit of mine. I'm very firm about distinguishing those two different types of music because to me they're very different types of music. A lot of people say it in all one word, like not even the hyphen's not even there anymore. Oh, goth industrial. It's no, there's goth, there's industrial. It's semantic, but it's an old habit. So if you hear me doing that, it's an old habit. But really, I mean, you look at it and you look at just get a collection of album covers or a collection of band photos of all the prominent bands, and you see it right there. And
Hmm.
I sat back and I really thought, and I'm like, I know somebody's done this homework, and I know somebody out there knows this story. I don't know this story. There's got to be more bands in the scene with I want to know what people of color are doing. There's no representation there. I'm Mexican, and it's, I see a lot of representation in music because I'm in LA. So even in, in the alternative music scene, there's a lot of us out there here. So
Mhm.
uh, I think that there's a lot more visibility at that. But I'm like, I need to know, and I think there's always been a part of me that likes to hear something. Well, it's a big driving force for me is hearing something never heard before.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I want to hear goth music from Outer Mongolia. I want to hear an
Ooh.
industrial band from, Cape Town. I want to hear from
Yep. Yep.
someplace. I get to hear all the bands from Europe, and I get to hear all the bands from
Right.
New York and LA and from, Texas, and yeah, all right. I get that. I get that. But I want to hear, and I think locally, I used to get excited about working for, a long time ago, I worked for a publicist for Cleopatra Records. So they big goth label at the time. Um, got to get demo tapes coming in as people wanted to pass them off to the record label, and getting to hear like that. I always say this. My most exciting thing is, I always wanted to hear what those two kids in Poughkeepsie with a drum machine and a tape deck, we're doing, and a Casio keyboard. I want to hear those guys.
Yep.
Like, yeah, okay, Front 242 is great, Nights Reb's great. I want to know what those guys are doing, because that's Front 242 and Nights Reb were originally two kids in Poughkeepsie in a garage with a drum machine. Like, everybody started that way, and so I get
Right.
excited about that. One of my favorite bands is Babyland, because they always had that sound,
Yeah.
and they always performed to those types of people. They always went after the kids. It sounds terrible when you say it that way, but they always did all ages shows, because at the time I used to ask them, why aren't you guys playing all, you should be playing all these industrial clubs. And Smith had said to me, it feels like we're preaching to the converted.
Mm.
And it really, that struck a chord in me. I'm like, you're right. He's like, no, Dan's like, yeah, we want to go to, we want to tour places, that nobody else tours, and go places nobody else goes, and kind of bring what we do to them. And their biggest message was always empowerment. And
Mm.
I did an interview like this with Dan and Smith, and I asked them, I said, what's, if you had a message, what would you consider it to be? And it was permission granted.
Mm.
I'm like, so what do you mean? He's like, if you feel like you need to do something, then go do it. And if you feel like you need somebody's blessing to go do it, here you go. Blanket invitation. Whatever it is, whatever the fuck you need to do in the world, whatever you need to do in this world, whatever you need to do in your life, don't let anybody stop you. And if you feel like you need permission, you have it now. You have my permission. Go out and do it. And I was like,
Yeah.
it changed the way I saw a lot of things, and thought about things. And
Yeah.
I love those guys, and I will always love those guys. And yeah, so I lost my train of thought.
Yeah. We were talking about diversity in music, and
Oh,
I.
diversity in music. Okay, so getting back
Yeah.
to that.
Right.
So yeah, I always wanted to reach out and hear, music from different people in different places, and hear their take on it. And now you're starting to see really good articles on, the South American goth scene. Things like that is really cool.
Yeah.
And I'd gone out and I found. It took me a little while to find it, but I found actually a couple of playlists, Spotify lists.
Mm.
Somebody had done a Spotify. They did. I'm like, somebody has to have done this. I know I'm not reinventing the fucking wheel. Somebody's already done this, and God bless them for it. And hopefully I can find their work. And I did. I found a playlist on Spotify, and it was just all goth music from people of color. I went, wow, this is exactly what I wanted. And I just started listening. I started going through, and then I'd go. I love Spotify for this. This is not a fucking Spotify plug, and if they see this, they owe me money because I'm promoting the shit out of it. Pay your fucking artist first.
Yeah.
The best thing I liked about it was being able to click on the link that says fans also liked, and then you have that list. And I
Yeah.
just kept doing that and pouring through it. Doing that, and then something that turned out to be so simple that I would never have thought of if it wasn't for. I'm friends with Reverend John, who does Das Bunker with Frank.
Mm.
And Reverend John had told me, if I know you're looking for music, you're trying to find your music, just clear your history in YouTube, and then do a couple of searches for a couple bands you like, and then just start following those. Eventually, it's going to try to start predicting what you want.
Uh,
and then it's going to start coming up, and it did,
yeah.
and it just started coming right up. And that was a huge thing. I'm always grateful for that. But yeah, between that playlist and that type of search, I still do this. I just dig and dig and dig, and I'm finding so much. And Oh Children, oh my God,
Yeah.
that's my
Oh yeah.
favorite. Okandi's voice is.
Yeah.
We all just
I,
sit there, like you said on Thursdays. We all just kind of sit there and just go,
yeah.
"Oh, he's dreaming," you
Yeah.
know.
I
So
went and
good.
got everything from Bandcamp from them.
Yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
so good.
Yeah.
The remix CDs, amazing, fucking
Mm.
amazing, good stuff. But yeah, Light Asylum.
Yep.
Um, was
That's
there's so
actually
many bands. Like it just did so many. Oh,
yeah.
and Debbie Friday, I'd never heard of before. Debbie Friday is fascinating because it's like, oh, this is really good dance music. Oh, her other stuff is like fucking Diamanda Galas level performance art. Like, oh my
Wow.
god, she's amazing.
Yeah.
Uh, my right now, uh, well, so what I and you've seen what I do with it. I try to expand outward from what we know or consider to
Hmm.
be goth into reaching out into other genres and finding those elements in other genres and just spreading out that way, trying to embrace them more as opposed to
Right.
like, oh well, that's just a hip hop band trying to exploit the goth vibe. It's like, well, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Um, Yugen Blackrock. She's I could listen to her rap forever because it's so intelligent and so concise and so passionate, and it's so good and it's so dark.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's like Yugen Blackrock, Backwash is great. Backwash is a black trans goth hip hop.
Wow.
That's probably the best way I could describe it, and I'm sure that that's minimizing, making, it's not, that's not nearly as rich as the music
Right.
is.
Right.
Oh yeah, if you get a chance, Backwash, and it's like Back X Wash. They have actually won awards, music awards in other countries,
Wow.
and other platforms for the tracks that they put out. But my favorite track is probably called it's probably my favorite track by them. It's called "Don't Come to the Woods."
Well, so
And
this is recorded, and
Mhm.
after this, we are going to raid into your stream, so
Oh,
you
that's right.
can play them now.
Now I know. Well, I'm pretty much giving away my whole playlist tonight, which is good. I
Yeah,
love
but
doing
it's
that.
but most people have not heard most of it.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard most of it. I
That's
always get
great.
excited about that.
Yeah.
Finding so much new stuff and like, oh, this is great. I've never heard this before. I'm gonna play this tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's
I
it's
have
it's good.
in one of my browsers, I've got just this run of tabs of all of these bands that I'm discovering. Um, you and my friend Dan, DJ 11 Chicago, he
Mhm.
does Metal Mondays,
Ooh, nice.
and so he brings in a lot of like tribal music from around the world. So of course, he
Rad.
plays the Who.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah. I love the Who. Yeah.
yeah, uh,
And it didn't strike me. The name didn't really strike me for
yeah,
a long time until I actually said it, trying to tell somebody, oh, the band, they're called the Who. Oh God.
yeah.
Like, well played. Well played. Yeah, Mongolian fucking metal. They're amazing. I have that
Oh yeah,
track. I play the video of them with what is, as I said before, I'm so horrible with names. I had to look up one earlier.
yeah.
Um, is it it's the singer from Hailstorm? I think it is.
Uh,
Yeah, they do. It's a
yeah,
great song.
yeah,
I love playing the videos.
yeah,
I
yeah,
love this format for that.
yeah.
When we first started doing Crucible in Meat Space, as I call it, um, we were just a tiny little club, a little underground club, and we a handful of people, but I wanted to bring a different element. And a lot of clubs, clubs have done it for a long time, showing videos on the walls and things like that.
Hmm.
I'm like, I want the video that I'm playing.
Right.
I want the song that I'm playing. I want that video, and I want
Yeah.
that audio. I want them to hear that. And usually, because of the nature of the way the media came out, it was a bitch to do that.
Mhm.
Um, Bruce Perdue, Helter Skelter, Los Angeles. I used to watch him do that with two VHS decks,
Mhm.
and and
Yeah.
sync and mix and do all that. But before him, there was also Sean Shore, who was an old staple of the LA underground and LA goth
There's
scene.
there's a long history of that in Chicago. When
Yeah.
I was growing up back in the 80s,
Oh, come on! No goth or industrial music was ever innovated in Chicago.
um, there was this famous club called Medusa's,
Hmm.
and the upstairs was the video room. And that was music videos all night long.
That's awesome.
And Leroy, who is frequently on Twitch, um, he was like the main VJ there. And I've told him a couple of times that he has had um, one of the largest impacts on my taste in music,
Yeah.
from sitting there, at all hours of the night, because this is an all ages club, so they had no closing time. Um, but just when you're downstairs at the club dancing, you don't know what you're listening to. You
Hmm.
find out later. Like, it took me years to figure out um, Fatima Hassan.
Yeah.
And it took me months to figure out Portion Control, Great Divide.
Right.
But
I used to have that problem.
upstairs,
I would always be on the dance floor, like for
yeah,
7 years of Control Factory. I didn't know who half the bands were. People were like, "Hey, so and so." I'm like, "I have no. You dance to it every week." I'm
yeah,
like, "I'm busy dancing to it. I don't go run up to the
right,
DJ booth with every song. I'm too
yeah.
busy drunk and dancing and having a good time." So I'm like, "Shit, I wish I miss all that music." And they're like, "Well, why don't you go get it? Because I don't know what the bands are called."
Yeah.
So there's a lot of catch up there, but yeah, I
Yeah.
totally appreciate that.
Yeah, but that's continued on. I mean, a lot of the clubs in Chicago continue to do music videos. That's Late Bar, where um, we go a lot, and where they have a streaming channel here. It's all video.
Hmm.
So problem the only drawback on that, of course, is that there's limited amount of music on video.
Oh,
Right,
yeah, yeah.
you can't play a lot of rarities unless you're making your own, which some people do. But
Hmm.
yeah,
It's I hate it because there's so much good fan stuff, but I always feel like I'm like, no, I don't want to play a fan video. I want to play the video the actual band made, and
right,
they didn't make one. And then I feel weird about playing the fan video, even though I like it and it's good stuff. And a lot of work went into it. I'm like, it's not the official video.
yeah,
The publicity company that I worked for, the guy who ran that, it was around the time that I had just started learning HTML1. you know,
oh yeah,
Corporations were just barely starting to even consider that they might want to spend some money on what was online. It wasn't even online advertising. It was so there was the World Wide Web, and we don't know what it is, but people are talking about it. So it was around that time, and the guy I had worked for, his name's Brian McNellis, and he had a company called Parasite PR, which I'll get into later because that was also very, very, very one message from that just really stuck with me. But we'll get to that. But what he had started doing was contacting the artists that he was doing publicity for through Cleopatra Records and getting videos from them. And he wanted to start a service where he would compile like a record service, but he would
mhm,
compile the videos on VHS and then send one out every month. And so bands would contribute their videos. And because at the time we were like, why aren't there more projection stuff?
right,
The guy I had worked for at Control Factory used to make. He had 3-stage slide projection animations. So 3 stacks of slide projector with full carousels, and so each carousel had one slide, which was one frame of that animation. And
hmm,
then you had an old 8088 that would have a peripheral board you plug to control all of those and fire them off. And so then he would used to do raves all the time that he would do these projections at, and that's how you would get animation on the walls. But it was I asked him, why didn't you do film? And he says, because it's not bright. Projectors are like 10 times brighter than film projections at the time. So it may not be as fluid, but the animation's brighter. You see it more vividly.
hmm,
And that really was interesting to learn. But we were like, we want video on the screen. We have monitors. Like there's a room. There's always back then. It was like, well, we have the room with all the TVs, right?
right,
Because every club had a room with a whole wall of TVs. You didn't have a
right,
video projector, but you had a wall of TVs. And so we wanted to, every club had that. So we're like, we all want to see videos. We want everybody to see CamLab burn out at the hydrogen bar because it was so, cyberpunk. We all want everybody to see Mind Phaser because it was fucking Gunhead.
mm,
Um, So
So
yeah, there was a lot of that, and he was trying to get that off the ground. It never really took off.
I
Um,
was
but
gonna say, what was the service called?
um, at this point, I don't even remember what it was called
Oh,
because there was only one tape ever got released of it.
oh, okay.
Yeah, it never really took off. We were very passionate about it, but it just never came together.
Okay.
You couldn't just send somebody your video. You couldn't just
Mm.
send them a DVD. Even you had to wait and hopefully the VHS tape showed up intact and didn't get X-rayed at the airport, kind of shit. Um,
Because a lot of
but
those old videos in the 80s was Video America,
yeah,
and I forget what the other one was, but those were the two main ones.
that would put them out
Yeah.
distribution. Yeah. Um, the It was really interesting because I think you're probably around my age and remember when the first day of MTV and local television show having their local television networks having not networks but stations having their own video show. Everybody would have their 1 hour video show or 2 hour video
Yeah.
show. Music videos were the big thing, and then it dropped off because there was, especially with, I think, with industrial dance music, uh, there weren't a lot of clubs playing videos, and so there was no money in it for the bands. It wasn't a huge, you know, MTV was never going to play it.
Right.
This is before 120 minutes. That was like, I don't even know who managed to pull that shit off. Um, but yeah, there was no money in it, and it cost a lot to put on. If you ever talk to Jared from ChemLab, ask him about that video for Codeine Glue and You.
Uh,
It was shot on the same set as they had built the set for the movie Double Dragon,
hmm.
and so Jared got somebody they kind of snuck in one night and shot it all in one night using that set. And Yeah, it was just all kinds of chaos. But there was that kind of shit where it's like, if you wanted to you weren't going to have a really good video because there was no record label that was going to put any money into a real good video. So it's you and your buddies trying to do something,
Right.
but you also didn't have the convenience of, digital cameras. You didn't have, I couldn't shoot a video on my iPhone. It was,
Right.
if you're lucky, you spent a shit ton of money and maybe got a JVC mini DV cam. If you were lucky, if you really put your money together. Otherwise, you were fucked. So there was that dip, and a lot of not just alternative bands, but a lot of bands in general just stopped putting out videos.
Hmm.
So all we saw were these massive monolithic corporation pop videos. There was no good alternative music videos for a long time. There's you could see a big black hole in there of like,
Yeah.
of solid work. And then it just picked up again, when clubs started doing video projection. DVD was easier to access. Technology had finally taken a step. Now that's out there. And now we live in wonderful times, as horrible as they are. I think as a kid, for me, I'm finally starting to get my jetpack. You know what I mean? Where I said, this is
Yeah.
the future. Where's my jetpack? Where's my flying cars? Finally starting to see the jetpacks and the flying cars, and I'm excited about
It
it.
was the best of times. It was the worst of
It
times.
was the worst of times. But it's a good. For that. It's a good time for that sort of thing, and for using it as a medium to be able to deliver message, to be able to soapbox. It's great. This is the the pressure of the pressure cooker of
Hmm.
our current society is really riling up some people and motivating some people to use the medium that they have access to try to do the right thing for people and
Yeah.
by people. And I'm excited about that. So
Well, as we're talking about our polar opposites here, I wanted to bring up, the you talk about it in your blog. You mentioned at least that you suffer from bipolar.
yes, I wasn't diagnosed till later in life,
Hmm.
and my psychiatrist was really lazy. So, what I just recently got a new psychiatrist, maybe in December, November, December, and she's amazing and brilliant and really listens and is actually very interactive. The first couple psychiatrists I had, I felt like they were. I talked to another friend who deals with psychiatrists and who's a psychologist. I'm like, so is it supposed to work this way, where the psychiatrist really just asks you what you think is wrong, doesn't really give a shit about it, and gives you pills and you go away? Or are you supposed to actually talk about your problems with them? Do they, or is that the psychologist's job? You got psychiatrists, you got psychologists. Psychologists you talk to, they actually therapy, they work with you.
Mm,
But it was until recently, my experience had just been, you know, oh, what's wrong? Well, I feel like this and this. Okay, you probably have this. Here you go. See you in 6 months.
mm,
All right, but so originally, my general practitioner doctor wanted me to quit smoking. Well, she was my new doctor. She told me I was going to quit smoking. Do you smoke? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, you're going to quit. I am. Yeah. Okay. So she put me on Wellbutrin,
mm,
and that helped a lot. It was amazing because
yeah.
I had tried the patch. Patch didn't work
Mm,
because I enjoyed smoking. I enjoyed the experience of smoking, and I enjoyed the nicotine. So I knew that part of it was the habit of smoking, and part of it was the feeling of it.
mm,
That it's also a habit. The experience of the having the smoke in your lungs is a habit. But then there's the addictive side of the nicotine. So the patch is supposed to help you with the nicotine, which is supposed to be the worst of the experience, and then you can get past the other stuff, but with hopefully with willpower. And I tried the patch for the first time, and maybe about 5 minutes in, I went, oh, oh man, yeah, I've been doing nicotine all wrong, man. I'm like, how many of these can I get on my arm in one shot? I didn't know I could get high from nicotine. This is amazing. So that was a bad idea.
yeah.
Luckily, I didn't develop a patch habit, but
Mm,
it was bad. So my doctor put me on Wellbutrin, and the Wellbutrin was great, but Wellbutrin's an antidepressant. They found that it helps a lot with the cravings specifically for nicotine, so it helps you
mm.
wean off of that.
I didn't
And it was
realize
great.
that.
It helped me a lot. Yeah, it was a huge help. So I went to talk to my doctor, and she said, "Oh, how you doing?" I'm like, "I feel really good." And she's like, "Oh yeah, well, they're not smoking." I'm like, "No, I don't know how to explain it. I don't feel horrible." And she's like, "Well, what do you mean?" I'm like, the other day my alarm clock went off and I got out of bed. And she's like, "Do you not normally?" I'm like, "No, normally sometimes I just stay in bed until the
Mm,
alarm clock goes off again the next day, and then maybe I get out of bed."
mm,
She's like, "Have you talked to anybody about depression?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm not depressed. I'm just tired. I'm not depressed. I didn't know what depression was. I'm like,
right.
I'm not sad all the time. And she's like, "Yeah, that's maybe, we talked about what depression was and how it works." And I'm like, "Oh, fuck, I'm depressed." I'm like, "Well, okay, well, that explains the goth stuff, but, I don't know where to go from here." So, she referred me to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist said, "You sounds like you're bipolar. You have these issues with, a little bit of anger management, a little bit impulse control. Hypersexuality is a component of bipolar sometimes, and yeah, guess who rolled zeros? That was great. So all these different elements come into play that illustrate that where it comes from, the symptoms, and that's how they come their diagnosis for bipolar. And he's like, yeah, you kind of checked off a lot of the boxes, so you must be bipolar.
Mm,
And so I got my meds, uh, and then more recently, I was having issues coming into the beginning of last year, and I'd gotten very, very ill. We're still not sure if I had COVID or if I just had a really, really, really bad flu that was also going around.
mm,
And the timing was not quite symmetrical with where COVID was, so it wasn't really, the odds were really low that I actually got COVID, but it was the sickest I'd ever been in my life.
mm.
Um, I genuinely, for the first time in my life, thought this is going to kill me. You know, I broke a rib coughing. I've never done anything like that
Wow.
before. I've never broken a rib. Never ever broken a rib in my life. I was sitting here at this very desk. I was just facing a different direction because it's set up. So I'm sitting at this very desk, and I'm talking to, or no, I'm watching. I think I'm watching something on Zoom, and I coughed really hard, and I heard outside of my body heard pop, and when I
Wow.
felt it pop in my rib, and I went, well, that's not good. And I kind of sat there for a second, like, oh God, I don't know what happened. I don't want to move. I don't know if there's anything wrong. I don't want to find out if there's anything wrong. And then I turned just a little bit and went, oh God, yeah, there's something wrong. And that hurt. And I wound up calling my wife going, I broke a thing.
Yeah.
She took me to the hospital, and turns out I broke a rib coughing. I'm coughing that hard. I was coughing for a long time leading up to that. And then finally that was the last straw apparently. And something snapped. And my rib is still sore. Like if I take a deep breath right now, I'll feel
Yeah.
it pop.
Oh,
It pops in and out. It's
yeah.
like my very, and it's not necessarily my floating rib, because we have a floating rib, but it it never healed up perfectly. So I still feel it. So
Well, they
if you're
they
going
have
out,
said.
Don't fucking go out. Wear your mask. Don't be a fucking idiot
exactly.
because my rib still hurts. So fuck you.
They have
Uh,
said that they discovered that COVID was in LA much earlier than ever.
I may have well had it then.
Yeah.
By the time it really came down to it, I wanted to go get the antibody test, but they were like, it's probably not going to show up because we're finding the antibodies go away really
Mm,
quick, and that's an issue. But yeah, I'm still having lung issues.
mm,
Definitely had heart issues. I'm excited to start walking on the treadmill that we just got. Trying to get in some semblance of physical shape again. But it took a lot out of me. But I think the all of that distracted me from from seeing my mental health continue to drop.
oh,
Um,
right.
and body chemistry changes, and being that I'm a spring chicken of the very very young age of 51, I your body chemistry changes, and it changed on me while I wasn't looking, while I was busy trying not to die from the flu.
Yeah.
And so I had I had a crisis moment, and went, yeah, I should probably talk to a new shrink. My old shrink had just retired, so I was kind of between doctors, and finally found one and got hooked up, and I'm feeling a lot better now. And what she did, she put me on anti-anxiety meds, very light anti-anxiety meds,
Hmm.
and that's making a big difference. She's like, yeah, I think maybe you're not. She's like, I don't know if you're really bipolar or because of some of what you're explaining, because she actually talked to me. We actually talked
Right.
about it. She didn't
Right.
just go, oh, well, here's the pills.
Right.
So when we talked about it, she's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna try you on some anti-anxiety stuff and see what happens because I think that that's what your issue really is." And I think that she's right. I'm feeling a lot better for it. So yeah, bipolar, good times.
Yeah.
It's a, I will say that it much like my depression. When my doctor first wanted me to continue taking Wellbutrin as an antidepressant, I was very hesitant because she wanted to up my dosage. And I wasn't necessarily afraid of what was going to happen to me, and oh my god, she's turning my drugs into be a zombie or whatever. I'm like, oh, zombies are cool. And, what? Take a vacation from my emotions? Oh god, yes. uh it wasn't so much that, it's just really reflecting on my it made me reflect back on my life and really look at things and think about it. And I'm like, depression sucks.
Yeah.
Depression sucks, and I would never wish it on anybody. But it's become a part of who I am. It's become a motivating force, and behind what I do. It informs me, uh, uh, in whatever levels of artistic expression or appreciation I have.
Hmm.
It tempers all of my decisions. It affects everything.
Yeah.
It's been a part of me for so long. I'm like, I don't. It's like cutting out a big part of my personality, and I'm afraid to do that. I
Mm.
don't know who I'm going to be after that. So I think there's always a part of me that I'm like, that's part of who I am, and I'm not going to walk away from that. I need to manage it. I need to mitigate it. I need to make sure it doesn't affect other people when it affects my life. So I have to be responsible for it. But I also feel like it's always going to be a part of me.
Mm.
So that it's that little black cloud in the Bob Ross painting should always be there in the corner somewhere.
Yeah.
You know?
That's an interesting way to look at it because I was first diagnosed, and we're the same age. I was first diagnosed when I was in the military, and that would have been 1990 or 1991, um, with depression. and what was clear, the doctor explained, um, it wasn't that I was depressed, I was suffering from depression. So I've always used that terminology,
Right.
because there's that distinction.
Hmm.
You don't have to be depressed to
Yeah.
suffer from a mental illness,
Yeah.
right? um, and that's it. I'm now at the point where I actually put that in my syllabus for students to know that I'm somebody they can come talk to. um,
Hmm.
that really um, spawned from several years ago. I had a student talk to me after class, telling me about problems, why they were struggling in class. I'm like, those are all exactly the same symptoms I had when I went to the doctor and they told me I'm suffering
Yeah.
depression. You maybe should go and talk to, a doctor.
Hmm.
And so he did, and came back next week and said, thank you. Doctor said, yes, I'm suffering depression and I'm on medication now. And
That is awesome to hear that somebody was able
so,
to take that step. Some people don't know. They don't know
yeah,
that. I didn't know I was depressed.
yeah.
I
I
probably
mean,
would have gotten help for it if I had known that's what it
I,
was.
I was just really tired and short tempered,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
I didn't know.
Why you don't you would never really make that logical connection of like
Right.
why we were told depression is sadness for so
Yeah.
long. You know,
I
I
knew.
as you yeah much like you, I'm very very vocal about my mental state, my the mental illness I deal with, and how long I've had it, how it affects me. I try to be as open as possible because it's very true that not just I mean people in general. There's a
Mhm.
big stigma, but men are told in America, in American
Well,
society, it is a very common thing that we are told that we don't talk about our feelings, that we just suck it
mhm.
up, that you have to be a man,
Yep.
man up, and so we're there's a lot of emotional suppression that we do that that comes from external sources, and we are taught to do it internally. We are taught to do it ourselves,
Yep.
and I'm tired of watching people die from it. It's not fair, it's not right, it's not okay. I didn't need, half the grief of my life would have been, been able to be dealt with, and a lot of damage could have been avoided had I been told it was okay to express my emotions and to communicate my emotions and to ask for help. You know,
Yeah.
there was a very in my early stages of life there was a very pretty much an anti-psychology, anti-psychiatry. My dad was, well, that stuff never worked for me, so it doesn't work. Like now I have a good relationship with my dad now. My parents are still together. They have completely their lives have been a complete 180, like complete difference.
No more bikes
They're
or
the
no more biker
drugs.
gang.
Well, there was the drugs, the lifestyle, all that stuff. They went. So my dad, he had heroin abuse. Um,
Mm.
my yeah, my dad had taken most of the drugs. Like most of the drugs that were available, he has had in his body at some point.
Yeah.
But you know, uh, the violence for him, went to very high levels. He went to prison for a while for he did attempted murder.
Mm.
He was a spouse abuser. He never put his hands on us, but watching him, torture my mom was horrible. Uh, Somehow they suffered through all of that. Um, and my dad wound up getting out of prison, and his heroin habit got worse. And a friend
Mm.
of his from the biker club caught up with him and told him, like, yeah, I went to rehab and I got clean, and so he dragged my dad off. So there's a Christian men's rehab program, and my parents are now ministers up in Fresno. They have
Mm.
a church up in Del Rey. You know,
Mm.
the thing I love about my parents is they never forget who they were. They're not they know who they are. And that is like they you can't just say, well, I'm not that person anymore. You were that person then, you're that person now. It's just you evolved. You learned, you changed, you worked on your whatever your problems were, you
Mhm.
worked that shit out. You're still that person, you have to own those things. And my parents do. They own, like my dad owns the things that he's done in his life, and the things he's done to other people.
Well,
My mom's the same way.
it's
So
also, if you've been an addict, you're always an addict.
yeah,
It's just whether you're
whether
you,
you're using or not.
right.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's
so
so my
that
parents don't forget. They're not like, but as far as being ministers go, my parents really aren't much different, when you interact with them as they were then. They're just a lot nicer. you know. But I had them come out to ground control a few times. It was great. My dad actually got up on stage while we sang "Sweet Transvestite" because my dad had taken me to see Rocky Horror Picture Show for the first time in my life.
oh wow.
So it's a lot of history, and it's funny because I'm like, just my family history alone is bipolar, let alone my actual emotional states.
Yeah.
So it's not really a big shocker there. But yeah, I think mental health, mental wellness. I think we should all always be able to talk about it, but I
Yeah.
do try to be very vocal about it. And, even whether it's good or bad, wherever I'm at, I try to talk about it. Not so, it's certainly not out of sympathy or anything like that, but just I
Right.
want my guy friends to know, like, hey, I'm going through this. you might be going through this and you feel like you can't talk
Exactly.
about it. You know,
Exactly.
it's like you don't even have to talk to me about it, but you
Exactly.
know that I'm comfortable talking about it.
Right.
And if not, you could just say, "Hey, do you know who I could talk to?" And I can give you some phone numbers. Something.
It's yeah, it one of the things I've noticed over the years, is just being able to, express something like this makes it so that other people can recognize it. And that,
Yes.
that's the first thing, is just even recognizing it. Um, throughout some of these interviews now, people have been bringing up various issues, and what is proven to be true, because I tell them, after this interview, when people see it, someone's going to come talk to you and say, hey, I got the same problem.
Yeah.
um, and that keeps happening, but that's not a bad thing. That's, they're
I'm totally
finally
down with that. If anybody sees
finally
this and wants to
yeah,
talk about it, hit me up.
yeah. And even if it's not you, just
Find
realizing, hey,
somebody
there are some cool people out there that,
that are really fucked up like you. That's it's true. I mean,
yeah,
I feel like at the end of the day, I'm blessed to be very functional for
yeah,
when I looked into bipolar and found out more about it and really understood the extent to which mine affects me. I'm like, I'm grateful I am not dead. There's a
yeah,
mortality rate and there's a collateral mortality rate with this.
yeah,
Our special flavor of sanity comes with, or lack thereof, comes with not just offing yourself, but taking people with you. So that's
yeah,
it's very real, very horrible shit. And
yep,
so I feel very very fortunate that I've never gotten to that point. I'm very fortunate to I have a mechanism that kind of goes off, and instead of taking the most extreme actions, I just shut down.
mm,
But I can feel it when like
right,
I'm like everything's crazy, and then somebody just goes, shh, and my brain goes, yeah, dude, all right, stop. What you're doing right now, that means it's because the engine's broken. It's not because your driving sucks. The engine's broken. Stop the fucking car. Just stop. Don't even try. Don't try
yeah,
to get it to the gas station. Don't try to just stop the fucking car and call AAA. That's what my brain does. And I'm grateful for that. But it takes a lot that I really got
yeah,
to overheat and break down before I really break down like that.
right. Well,
But I feel fortunate that I I'm not at that point. And I have friends who do have that, who've had the
and I
attempts.
want to I want to give a shout out right now to, actually, my first aired interview was, and I mentioned him earlier, Dan, DJ 11 Chicago.
Hmm.
Was also one of the organizers of Call Waves, which was organized in response
Yep.
to suicide,
Yeah.
which led to the creation of Darkest Before Dawn, which helps to combat or help people with mental illness, particularly in this nightlife industry where things are 10 times worse, because you're working off shift from everybody else, you're around alcohol and drugs, you're
Yep.
around drunken idiots
I
that
don't
can
know what you're
really
talking about. Uh,
that can
I
really
I
ruin your
I
night.
heard that was a thing. I
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
Somebody, yeah, I noticed that working from home, streaming from home, I drink more than I drank a lot of clubs, and I noticed that I drink less frequently because I've never been a home drinker. I don't
mm,
really like that was never my thing till now because now I work from home.
mhm,
It was always going out hosting karaoke, doing drinks with everybody. So I'd get obliterated, but I'd get obliterated one night a week. It wasn't really making a habit of like I don't come home and have a cocktail. I don't have a beer
right,
randomly. So it's usually in the process of doing my club thing is when I do it.
right,
And I'd made the joke with somebody of like, yeah, I heard I had a really good time last week. How did my stream end? Because I heard it was fun.
mm,
I didn't get a chance to record it, so I have no idea because I don't
oh,
remember like the last half of my show. So yeah, the booze is definitely a problem.
yep,
I've had to dial back, and my wife looked at me shocked the other day when she's like, "Okay, I need to put in the Venmo order," and I'm like, "I'm good," and she's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, shit, I have been drinking that much."
mm,
I know that I need to step back. I'm trying to hydrate more. I need to drink
yep,
less. It has a profound effect on your psych meds, much in the way that those lovely black charcoal activated charcoal uh, ice creams and frozen drinks. I don't know
Mm,
if you know about that.
no,
So yeah, they make like you seen the black ice cream, the black they make black
no.
ice cream
I
cones.
I live in
It's
the South.
oh okay, well
Yeah,
yes.
we'll get
So
it
it
in
was
20 years.
it became yeah right no like yeah new wave I hear is coming up over there. Yeah, it's a thing and it looks great and I can't have it because the black charcoal it's activated charcoal and
Right.
which is what they give you when you OD on stuff or if you
Hmm.
drink something poisonous.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
and so they're finding that the black charcoal neutralizes your psych meds, which is
Mm,
probably not a good thing. So I
right.
was fine, and then I had an ice cream cone, and then I murdered all those kids in the bus, and I don't know what happened. So yeah, you have to be really careful with it. I haven't been careful, and I need to be more careful with it, especially now going into a new bed. I can tell. Uh, I can tell the difference. Like if I drink on a night, like my Friday, because I do my Thursday streams,
Hmm.
and then I'll wake up Friday, and then I'll be incredibly paranoid and depressed,
Mm,
and I'll be like, oh yeah, I stepped on my meds. Yeah, that was dumb. That was a bad idea. And so the next day, like I'm finding now when I'm starting my streams, I'm starting them with a cup of coffee, and then I have my giant bottle of water here, and I'm
yeah.
like, okay, I'm going to fill myself with as much non-booze as possible, and then there won't be that much room left. And uh, I found these amazing shot glasses that are like thimble sized.
Oh, right.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
find about like, let's do shots, and I'm just like a
Mm,
couple drops, good to go,
yeah.
all right, and it's funny because I compare them to the shot glasses I used to use, and I'm like, oh man, yeah,
Yeah.
wow, I need to address
The
that.
the other thing I recommend is electrolytes.
Yes,
I buy like the jars that where you could scoop rather than the stupid throwaway packs that are full of waste. So
yeah.
that's what this is. This is electrolytes here,
Nice,
right?
nice.
And so I just
Yeah,
drink one.
I was like, that beer looks really good. I wasn't
Yeah.
sure.
No, this is
Um,
electrolytes so it's like watermelon flavored electrolytes plus this stuff called juice without the I that's like concentrated fruit and vegetable, like
Interesting. That
probiotic
sounds
things.
good. That
Yeah,
sounds
so
really
I drink
good.
this all day long.
Nice. Yeah, I my wife runs marathons and she does Ragnar relay. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Mm,
It's like a 600-mile or 500 600-mile relay race. So they start like they do it in different parts of the nation, parts of
mm,
the world now. Now they do hikes too. But she does the run, and it goes from Dodger Stadium, and we live like 5-10 minutes from Dodger Stadium, it's all the way down to San Diego,
mm.
like right on the beach in San Diego.
Yeah.
And it's two vans, 6 runners in each van, and I usually drive the vans because I'm like I don't know if you've seen me, but I'm a very slim 270, so I'm not running anywhere. But I drive the vans for which that I like the vans much in the way I like DJing for like 12 hours. It's like the experience of it is it's a lot of fun for me. So
Mm.
I drive the vans and one of the vans. So you have two vans and then you have 6 runners. Each runner will run X amount and then they slap bracelet to the next runner who then goes into the relay race. And then eventually, when you get to the sixth runner in the van, is usually the next place you stop at is a huge meeting place where all the other vans are there because all the vans are handing off from one van to another. So at that point, you then get to meet your other 6 runners on your team, and
Mm.
hang out with them for a little bit. And then
Yeah.
when your runner comes in, tags off, that van goes and starts doing their 6 legs. You go try to find some place to nap for a little bit, an hour or two, try to find some food, get cleaned up, get ready to run your next 6 legs. So usually 3 laps of that.
Wow.
And yeah, so each runner is running their own marathon broken up in like 3 parts. It's
Wow.
it's it's amazing. But you see so much and there's other people out there. The energy of it is just so cool to like you're seeing other runners, everybody's high fiving, everybody's waving. We when your runner's on the road and maybe they're running for like 6 miles, so you find on the map you find different spots on the road to pull over to give them water, check in with them. It's usually
Hmm.
hot as hell and they're usually just pouring water.
Right.
So you're handing off water, and you'll see other runners who look like maybe their van couldn't figure out where they were at or whatever, and you could see them trying to just chug along, trying to go. So you give them water from your stuff, and electrolytes, whatever it is that they need. In the middle of the night, you have to have flashing lights so that you don't get run over because you're running on the side of the road.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, some places have sidewalks, some places you're on the side of the road. You don't want to get creamed in the middle of the night. So because we do Burning Man, we have all the blinky lights and stuff like that. Burning Man, it's very easy to get run over in the middle of the night because there's no street lights.
Mm.
Uh, so we try to help out with that, but it's a really cool experience, And so she has that, and so she got a friend of ours who had joined the team was working for the company that makes Emergency. So I got like boxes of Emergency now
Okay.
for the electrolytes. I like that because it's got the electrolytes and the B12.
Mm.
And it's a nice accelerant that's not caffeine, so I don't get all the horrible feeling of post caffeine. But the other thing we do is she gets, because she's a runner, she gets all the different electrolyte things. So we use the Noom tablets as well. I like
Mm.
those because they come in a little case and you just drop them in water and they fizz and boom, you have an electrolyte drink.
Mm.
So they're pretty neat. I'm trying to remember which of the companies. One of the companies, I think it might have been Noom, uh, because there's nobody running in marathons right now because there's no Ragnar relays and
Right.
there's no big group things. Uh, on their website, they came out with mixed drink ingredients for using their electrolytes in mixed drinks because they're like, well,
Yeah.
we don't know what to do with it, so try it as a mixer.
That is something I wish bars would do.
I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was
Right.
brilliant, And
Because I mean
if you can make something as a mixed drink, you could make it a virgin mixed drink too. So it's not a difficult leap.
I mean it's just also it helps with preventing hangovers.
Yeah, if you're gonna pour that much alcohol into yourself, then at
Yeah.
least you're mitigating some of the damage
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
I,
Oh,
I, I
absolutely.
admit that this isn't always just, you know, virgin,
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. My connection is. I didn't catch that. Yeah. Yeah, one of these days I'm going to fake everybody out and pour. The only reason I don't swap out my I love Fireball, Fire Jack, like any of the cinnamon drinks, Jack
Mhm.
Daniel's Fire, Jim Beam Fire is really good, but that's like to me that's probably the most it hits me the worst.
Mm.
Fireball tastes like the coolant that it has in it, so um, yeah, I would say the Jack Daniel's Fire is probably my favorite, but it's also very rich. But
Mm.
it's actually a good alcohol as opposed to just here's some booze with cinnamon in it,
Yeah.
But the only reason I don't swap out is because I would feel bad doing 60 shots in the middle of the night with somebody and then find out that they find out I was just drinking water while they were drinking alcohol and, getting that message in the morning from the hospital going, you dick.
Yeah.
So yeah, I try to at least be sincere in that aspect of it. But yeah, I think I'm hoping that we won't find a major increase in alcoholism among our DJs now because we're all working from home and just drinking a lot because we're just here and bored and I miss all my friends and I can't see everybody, so I'm just gonna play music and drink and see people online and it's fun, but I think I know I have to be careful. I need to be
Yeah.
more careful than ever, and I'm hoping that it'll pan out okay. One of the things I do that does make me feel better is I try to catch Matt Hart's stream every Monday.
Okay.
I don't know. Have you seen Matt Hart's?
I've
Matt Hart 3808.
I've seen him I think once. I just only recently discovered him.
I love his show. He's such a fun guy. He's such a fun guy. His whole thing is he's Matt Hart. He's broadcasting from the year 3808 from an
Right.
undisclosed bunker in the UK. But he works out. He works out. If you go to his channel, you can spend
Oh,
channel
right.
points, and you can make him do squats.
Right, right.
He'll do squats. He'll do planks. He'll do push-ups. He'll do press-ups. Yeah, and he has his camera on the floor, so you can see it. He can show you, look, I'm doing the workout. And he's always jumping. He's always moving. Just his whole thing. He's like it's like watching Richard Simmons doing an industrial DJ set. He's just nonstop, always going, always
Yeah.
going. And there's a bunch of people out there who are watching this right now going, who the fuck is Richard Simmons? Uh, but I
Are you
love
kidding?
watching him. And I made the mistake of admitting to him and Slither, I think his wife or his girlfriend, I don't know. She's his partner, and she also she moderates his channel. So she moderates the chat. And I made the mistake of mentioning to her, yeah, whenever, Matt does his squats, I try to keep up. I started doing the squats because I need exercise. I'm very
Mhm.
sedentary, more so now than ever before. I love doing computers. I love playing video games. I love programming. I love doing all that stuff, which means I sit around a lot.
Yeah.
So I need to get more exercise. I joke with people. I'm like, yeah, I need to do something because I don't need my wife's gonna trade up at some point. She's gonna get wise, and she's gonna
You know what?
trade up because she
You
runs
know what you should
marathon.
get, which I got. Mine. It's an underdesk. What do you call it? Elliptical. By QB, and you've frozen, so I'll keep talking until you come back. It's a nice little exercise thing where I just, so if you ever see me doing this, it's because I'm using my little mini elliptical. Keeps me from completely being sedentary, and yeah, so you're still frozen, so I'll still keep talking. I don't know if you can hear me. um so we've lost him, so let me just pause and fill in with intermission, and we're back. All right.
So then I pulled my pants. Oh, hey,
Minor technical difficulties, but
minor technical difficulties.
yes. So this gives us a chance to segue into something else. um, so there's a variety of different things that I have on my list to talk about. I don't want to take too much time, but um, you've been involved in a couple of interesting kind of efforts, fundraisers lately. You were part of a stream against homelessness, and then you have an interesting story about a photojournalist in the area. Can you tell us a little more about those?
So the I've been very lucky that I'm very grateful to have started making contact with Squarewave TV on Twitch. It's David Christian. He runs Squarewave, which is a record label of sorts. Uh, Puts out some really good music. Very diverse selection of electronic music. And um, he started doing Squarewave TV, and he decided that because it wasn't really a revenue generator in a major sense, much like
Mm,
same mentality that I had with ground control, is like, so I got this money. It's not going to hurt me to not have it, but it's there, and maybe we can do something cool with it. It's a, it's just enough that it's expendable and disposable in that sense. It's like it's not enough to really. I'm not going to make a living off of this. So
mhm,
if it's not going to impact me to not have it coming in, then I can do something cool with it. And so he just decided he was just going to do fundraisers, and he's done some cool fundraisers. But this was he put together a marathon, DJ marathon on Twitch, distorted disco against homelessness, and and it was cool. The lineup was great, and I was looking forward to it.
mhm.
And then I was up late. I'm up all hours of the evening and morning. I get a message at like I don't know. I think it must have been like 9, something like that, 9 or 10. And he's like, "Hey, um, do you have any interest in doing a slot on the marathon tomorrow?" And I was like, Sure." Turns out one of the DJs had to drop out. It's, you know, par for the course. As
Mhm.
you get that many DJs, you can't guarantee not one
Right,
of them is going to have an emergency. You know what I mean?
right.
So somebody unfortunately had a bail, and he had a slot open, and it was like I think the 8 o'clock slot or something like that. It was rough. So he was
8
trying to figure
a.m.
out who. Yeah, 8 a.m. like our time. It was like 7 or 8 a.m. And it was going to be a tough slot to fill. And I'm like, you know what? I'll do it. I'll take it. An hour. I can figure out an hour, and I can either stay up or I can nap right before it. I'll be fine.
Right.
And it was a lot of. I had a great time doing it. I approach things from a pretty lighthearted direction, I think, with regards to that, because I might be doing Crucible right now, which is a much more serious level of stream, I think, as
Hmm.
far as content goes. But like me and my friends started the battle of the soft rock DJs at Burning Man. I like all kinds of music, and some of it is good. So in certain most of the time I try to just have fun with it. I don't take myself too seriously, and I just if somebody he asked me to fill in, so I'm like, all right, so I'll find something, I'll find some stuff that will fit in this. but I just took it from my own approach of just kind of like, hey, this is a good time for you to go to the bathroom during the marathon. If you need to go stop and get your meal, you got an hour. Since meanwhile, I'm just gonna sit back and play some lounge music between now and then. But no, I played some serious music, but
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun, and I felt like I was able to bring uh, my take on it, into the picture. So it was really
Yeah.
good. I had a lot of fun with it, and it went to a good cause, and it was very motivating. And so after that, he had asked me to, or he has somebody who handles Sundays on Square Wave. And so he had told them that, or given them the okay to try to find some replacements to fill in some temporary replacements. So I've lately been doing a slot on Sunday nights. Um, not this last Sunday, but the Sunday before that, uh, I was up. I started my set at midnight, and you know, I was like, oh, I'll go till like 2 or 3. It'll be fine. I had a 12-hour shift.
Wow.
He had mentioned to me that that Square Wave still hadn't gotten it to its goal yet of $3,000 for the
Mm.
Distorted Disco fundraising.
Yeah.
And so, of course, totally not having a manic moment, decided I'm just going to stay on until we make more money. And that was a lot of fun. I had a great time doing that. And I like the longer sets, but I'm starting to find that I actually do like the shorter sets now because it makes me focus and pare
Yeah.
down and really concentrate. So, I enjoy both.
Right.
As people say, I like both kinds of music. I say I like both kinds of music, gothic and industrial.
Yeah. There
Um,
you go.
I like short sets and long sets, so
Yeah.
it worked out good. But yeah, it was it's the fundraiser was for the Downtown Women's Center of Los Angeles,
Right.
and they primarily work, from what I understand, they primarily work with homeless women, and it was having worked at a battered women's shelter and understanding how people get from point A to point B with women. A lot of that has to do with domestic violence, and some of the women that are on the street are there with their children because
Right.
living in a car with no access to utilities is
Hmm.
safer than living in a home with an abuser.
Right.
So it's a sentimental thing for me. It
Right.
hits home for me. So we being able to be a part of that and help out with that, and uh, doing it on a night when the night before, or the morning, the night before that, it was incredibly cold out. And
Mm.
I'm like, I'm here in LA. And, so I know what the Downtown Women's Center is doing because I live here and
Right.
I live in a nice house with heating and air conditioning,
Right.
and I'm fucking cold. And I can't imagine what it would be like. Well, I can imagine what it would be like out there. I wouldn't want to do it. I would hate to have to do it. And I would hate for it to be somebody that I know and love to be stuck out there. And if somebody's out there, if there's a woman out there on the street, or trying to move from shelter to shelter, there's a pretty good chance that she has somebody who loves her and
Hmm.
wants to, would want her to be safe.
Right.
So I can relate to that. So I'm really excited. I get excited and really just grateful for the opportunity to be able to help out with things like that. That it makes me grateful for where I'm at in my life, and for the things that I have, that I have the wherewithal to be able to give that part of myself, and
Yeah.
to give out that part of myself, to whether it's time and effort or money or both.
Right.
The fact that I can do something, that I'm healthy and able-bodied enough
Hmm.
to be able to do something for somebody else.
Right.
And I think we had this conversation earlier about that as well. That it's I I'm terrible at asking for help, and I've had to make an effort to get good at asking for help, to put my ego aside, and to put my concern for other people aside in a certain level,
Hmm.
to voice my own needs.
Yeah.
And it's allowing other people to help you sometimes, or this comes with the tip jar thing, and with people doing cheers and bits and all that. It's like,
Yeah.
sometimes you need to make room for other people to do something good for you,
Yeah.
because it makes them feel better, and it helps them to feel enabled. It helps them
Yeah.
to feel like they have value for being able to contribute to somebody else's well-being.
Right.
You know,
And I
so
know that, it is common for people not to like to ask for help, which is where I come in,
mhm.
and do all of my pushes for hype trains and everything. Because
I found myself doing that on Square Wave because I'm like,
yeah,
you know what? I don't do it on my channel, but you know what? I'm
yeah,
here with purpose and intent. So I have
exactly.
no fucking problem saying
Yep,
everybody take out a few bucks and throw it
yep,
at this. Give me your give me your bits, give me all your bits. I will take
yep,
however many bits you have. If you have 5 bits left at the bottom, rattling around the bottom of your wallet, I'll
yep,
take those. If you got 1,000 bits sitting in a coffer, give me the
yep,
1,000 bits. Give me whatever you got, I will take it.
yeah.
And being
It's
able to be aggressive about asking for help on behalf of other people is a lot
yep.
of fun.
That's why almost basically all of my tier one emotes are something to help DJs.
Mhm.
The other one is Chicago flag because I've always wanted one and nobody had it, so I had to make it.
Nice.
um, the rest of my emotes are music related that I want to use that nobody else has, and
You know
I'm the
what?
only one that has them because nobody's going to subscribe to my channel
I,
at the 2 or 3
yeah,
level.
we'll see. We'll
Well,
see.
I've
Give
got
it time.
I've got 50 subscriptions and I've given away 46 of them.
Mhm.
But
I
I
understand.
they're all almost all either DJs or moderators that I've given it
Yeah.
to. So it's another way for me to be able to help is giving them those emotes to be able to throw up in
Mhm.
during hype trains. So
Yeah. Oh no, people. Yeah, people don't understand the psychology behind that and how helping. Like I try to hang on to a bunch of bits and then I'll do 5, 10 bits at a time, and I'll do the whole like 1 bit, 1 bit, 1 bit, 1 bit, 1 bit.
oh yeah.
So that they all show up instead of just doing like, oh, cheer 100. I'll do like cheer one, cheer one, cheer one, cheer one,
Oh yeah.
because you do it periodically and you remind people, oh yeah, that's a thing. Well, I'll do it too,
Yeah.
and it's so you get that trickling in at a more constant rate than maybe you get lucky and one person barfs stuff out, 1,000 bits or whatever. It's
Right.
better this way because you're constantly just kind of throwing out that little reminder. I
Yeah.
remember being at the club and seeing an empty tip jar and going up and being very physically expressive about tipping a
Yeah.
DJ or a karaoke host because I saw they didn't have any tips in the tip jar, and I'm like, hey, look, I'm
Yeah.
putting a tip in the tip jar and not asking for anything in return. Maybe somebody should
Yeah.
do that,
I was I was at Late Bar in Chicago one time and somebody came up and my friend Dan was bartending and he made like all these drinks for him. The guy had to like make 2 trips and he left like $1. And
Oh,
so when he
it
came
kills
back,
me.
I had words with him. I made him feel guilty so
Yeah,
that 5 minutes later he came back. He left a bigger tip. He said, "Is this okay?" Like, yeah, good job.
that'll do, pig. That'll do.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's fucking rude, man.
yeah,
That kills me. That's so
yeah.
rude. If a bartender brings me a beer, cracks it open, and puts it on the table, I try to leave them something
I,
because
I tip
it's
for
like,
water.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
still doing
There's
something, right?
Yeah. When I'm working at a bar and and I'm hosting karaoke and they're comping me drinks, I tip. I'll pull money out of the
Oh
tip
yeah,
jar and be like, tip your bartender,
yeah.
you know? Um, so yeah. So you'd asked about the other thing. I know you wanted to touch on that, and that was Josh Pacheco is a photographer in Los Angeles,
Mhm.
and they were documenting the shenanigans that were going on with the pro-Trump rallies downtown
Mm.
a couple weeks back, and they were assaulted. And there's video of the assault, and it's really disgusting. Um, Being raised in an environment of violence, I'm not. I have a very thick skin towards seeing it in a lot of levels. What really got to me wasn't the violence so much as how it was delivered, the intent
Mm.
that it was delivered with, the way that people that drove me crazy more than anything else. Just seeing that, seeing somebody assaulted for having a camera and not being white, for uh,
Mm.
for being, for somebody assuming that because they weren't in the fray with them that they were from the other side, you know, and being
Yeah.
assaulted for not carrying their banner around. It was really gross, and hearing the things that people were saying while they were doing it was the part that got to me.
Mm.
Uh, and so it really hit home with me. I wasn't aware of any of it until Victoria Lane, who's my partner that I work with for club stuff. She is the promoter for Lost Angels. In Los Angeles, it's a immersive theater nightclub oriented immersive theater experience, and
Okay.
it's really fun. But she's also my partner with Crucible. And when Crucible was a club, we were doing it together. We still try to do things together online while we're temporarily in the online space, hopefully temporarily. Um, but she and I were talking, and she's amazing and very insightful and motivating. And I had told her the night, maybe a couple nights before the Thursday stream, like I feel like I got to do something. I don't like this, and my
Mhm.
first instinct is to do something, and I would like to do something positive before I get fed up and do something negative. So what can we do that's positive? I want to, I don't make a lot of money in tips, but if I make, whatever I bring in, tips, subscriptions, bits, I want to donate to something worthwhile. I'm like, I could do the ACLU or something like that. And she's like, let me think on it and look around a little bit, and I'll get back to you. So all right, next morning, she messaged me and she's like, so, she's very active on Instagram and Twitter. She sent me first thing in the morning. I got a link to this, and she's like, I want to help this person. I said, let's help that person, and it was Josh Pacheco, and they were really shocked and surprised that somebody reached out to them like that, and they
Mhm.
wound up coming and hanging out and chat the entire night for Crucible,
Cool.
and it was a
Cool.
lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see that, and people were, when we brought it up and we posted links, and people would go and check it out, not realizing that person was there, and they were like, "Yeah, that was me," and people were like, "Whoa," and really jumping on board to help out and support. And
Yeah.
the next day, I got a note from them, and they said that they had got enough to be able to cover their subscriptions for the prescriptions for the meds that they needed to,
Oh wow.
there was
Yeah.
ear damage, there was general physical damage. It was fucked up, and I'm glad that we were able to help them, because you're not
Yeah.
insured, you know.
Yeah.
It's a bad situation, and to be unexpectedly needing healthcare like that,
Right.
and not have access to it, it's fucked. So I'm really, that made me feel good to know that it helped them, and then they their attitude about it was, you know, uh, yeah, they kicked my ass, but they didn't kill me. So I'm gonna grab my camera and I'm going back out tomorrow. And I'm like,
Good.
fuck yeah.
Yeah.
here's everything in my wallet. you
Yeah.
know, I want to give you whatever means you need to go and upset those people as much as possible by documenting history. You
Yeah.
know, so I am on board with that. So those were the two big
Yeah.
ones. I like doing fundraisers. I like having the ability to do this.
Yeah.
Um,
And
it feels great.
that's something I'm seeing more and more now. Um, I
Hmm.
mean, it seems like every week there's now,
I like that.
something, and hopefully that doesn't end up becoming oversaturated. But
And
um,
even then, it's like nobody's. I since this this has become a recent phenomenon as far as the marathon streams go. I haven't seen one that has been a stream for the sake of being a stream. We're gonna get 12 DJs to play over the course of 12 hours because we're cool. Like I haven't seen that. What I've seen is we're all going to do this because somebody we know needs help, or
yeah,
because we saw that there's a thing and we want to help out with that. Like
right,
that's I love that. I
yeah,
love that. I love being a part of it. I love knowing that I am in a community that is excited about that.
mhm,
Is excited about human well-being and trying to do stuff for the people. I try to be altruistic, and I'm not always altruistic. I'm a human being, so sometimes I do shit that's selfish. This gives me an opportunity to
right.
try to make up for that sometimes. And I'll take it.
So one of my concluding question, or my usual concluding question, is, what gives you hope? And I'm going to guess that that'll build off of what we just talked about.
It will. So I have a friend named Ed, and Ed has a band called Gentleman Junkie, and it's a really good band. They're I think he's signed to Negative Gain Productions. They have some good stuff there. All
Mhm.
electronic, does like industrial dance type stuff. Um, Ed teaches government history or government. I think government in high school. He's a high school teacher, which provides us with endless amounts of being able to joke and make fun of him about various things. But he's very passionate about his job, and he's very passionate about government.
Mhm.
The subject of it, and making informed decisions about it. his attitude and his discussion, my discussions with him about it, have made me understand my responsibility for government as a citizen in ways that I never really considered before. It made me want to be more participatory in it. You know, I don't I don't get it much in the same way that I can't do paperwork for, things like insurance and,
Mhm.
grown up paperwork type stuff. I just can't, my brain doesn't work that way. And so things that are a certain level of complexity, I can't keep attention
Mhm.
enough to process. So I've always just been like, well, that's not something I can do. I'll go out and I'll vote, but any more involvement than that, and I get lost in the words. So being able to talk to him about it and being able to realize and approach it from a different angle, and it motivated me to get involved with other people who are able to process that, and people whose opinions, when I see them make commentary on other aspects of life and society, makes me feel like we share the same goals and ideals. I can then talk to them about it and say, well, so you read all the fine print and all this stuff. What does this bill really do? And they'll tell me, well, here's what it says it does, and here are the arguments for and against it. I had a friend who used to have a house party called Drink the Vote, and she'd get together with her and her brother and all of her incredibly intelligent friends, and they'd sit around and have cocktails and talk about these issues. But they wouldn't.
Mhm.
It wasn't a let's polarize everybody. It was everybody
An
talk what you
old-fashioned
think,
salon.
an old-fashioned salon and symposium. You
Yeah.
know, talk about it, and we're not trying to come to any conclusions. We're just trying to make sure we all understand what this bill's trying to do.
Mhm.
We're not going to get into intent. We're not going to get into why or it's dumb or smart or anything like that. We're just going to say this is what this is trying to do. And if you want to give your opinion on it, that's fine. If you don't want to subscribe to somebody's opinion on it, that's fine too. And it's very civilized and really laid back and really helpful. So I've been finding more groups like that, more people
Mhm.
like that. I've looked for that in some of my friends where I'm like, okay, I know that person's very politically active. Do they ever make me feel uncomfortable with some of the things that they say or do, especially with their activism? No. Okay, cool. Then that's somebody I want to listen to and at least hear them out on why I should go a certain direction. And it's a lot of effort for one person's vote, but when I see the numbers as low as they are,
Mhm.
I don't feel so worthless about it. Ideally, my goal will to inevitably feel completely worthless because there's so many people voting on it and because so many people actually give a shit.
Yeah.
I look forward to that day. But so what gives me hope is watching Ed talk about what he teaches those kids, and to tell me what he gets from them,
Mm.
what he
Yeah.
thinks they're learning, and how they, we all have our opinions, and I've got a son who's 21, and he I watch him grow up, and I still have no idea what kids think about things. I have no idea what teenagers were thinking when he was a teenager. I don't really have a clear idea on what he's thinking as an adult and what his peers think. Um, so hearing it from somebody who's immersed in that and has constant,
Mhm.
ongoing dialogue with these people helps. And when you have somebody who's really able to evaluate a generation's actions as uh, based on previous data from previous generations and being able to see cause and effect and
Right.
predict what those actions will affect later on down the road, he can then look at the kids and go, they all seem to be motivated by X, Y, and Z, which means that in their generation, they're probably going to go pushing for X, ABC or whatever.
Right.
And so being able to hear that helps a lot. I have had every reason to distrust every level of government and authority for a very long time. Um, and so I have a considerable amount of cynicism, which I acknowledge and I realize is
Mhm.
not the reality of things, but it very heavily taints my view of the world and of humanity. Um, so I often make it a point to rely on other people's perspective of reality to to inform mine because I know how heavily weighted
Yeah.
mine is. I used to joke about having a tip jar that I was slowly collecting money to build a Death Star to finally eradicate the universe of Terrans. Because that's Terra is not Terra I like. It's the Terrans I don't like so much. people fucking suck. Humanity sucks. I hate fucking people. Blah 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 blah. Like I have that attitude. So anything I can do to try to make things suck less for people, I'm hoping maybe people will suck less after things suck less for them, and then we can get on with life.
Yeah.
So that gives me hope. Knowing that there's a generation coming up. Watching the way my son uh, interacted with his peers in a direction of extreme of radical acceptance.
Mhm.
You know, um, watching him stick up for people that he should be sticking up for.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much everybody. But it's like racism, sexism, gender issues, all of that.
Right.
He's been very vocal and adamant about acceptance, and and I'm proud of him for it. And I'm like, he's succeeded in spite of me, which gives me hope.
Yeah.
So
I deal
yeah.
with students that age. Of course, I teach undergraduate college. So, and we were talking about this earlier, that that is something that it gives me hope as well, is that I've seen the change in the 15 years I've been teaching, of just much more, I mean, progressive minded kids that are much more aware of what's going on in the world, um,
Mhm.
much more focused on um, wanting to make a difference, wanting to help people, wanting to help the environment, um, wanting to save animals, whatever it might be. Um, and I teach entrepreneurship, which and surprisingly, in the almost, over an hour and a half here, I have not yet weaved in.
I was going to say somehow we missed that.
um, I've agreed with you with the idea of not really having faith in government, and I've always said that if you want to change something, uh, protests aren't going to get companies to do anything differently.
Mhm.
Regulations are not going to happen because they just don't. If you want to change something, you have to go into marketplace yourself,
Yep.
show people
Fuck
how
up
it's
their
done.
bottom line. Yeah.
But that view is changing now, because of what I'm seeing with younger
Mhm.
people and their efforts that I can see now, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement, and the response to the overly late response to the police brutality
Mhm.
with George Floyd,
Mhm.
but seeing that is what gives me hope. The other thing that gives me hope, is all these people like you, who I'm interviewing and seeing on Twitch, that care, that give a shit and do something. You have an audience, you have a platform. It's not like the president's platform or anything like that, but you've got people there.
I
You're
say,
introduced.
I'd like to thank both of my viewers for coming in today. And yeah.
No, but you do. I mean, you just integrating, diverse artists, without like calling attention. It's like, okay, here is our,
Mhm.
our people of color segment of music for,
Right. That
right,
was the thing too. I didn't want to make it like
right,
I'm going to dedicate this show
right.
to artists of color, or I'm going to dedicate this segment. I'm
It
like,
just,
no, that should be a part of everything that we do
right.
whenever we do.
Yeah.
So
So
I appreciate that you recognize that.
oh yeah, well, I mean, this is something that, we've been, that I've been bringing up, and with teaching. I teach in a business school, and everything, all the cases, all the examples, all the speakers, all the entrepreneurs, they're all white men. And so once I brought up to people, it's like, hey, you know what? How many people of color, how many women do you use as examples in your class and speakers in your
Mhm.
class? And people are like, we're teaching diversity in our classes, management, and all that, but we're not really being diverse. So now that, people are
Yeah.
cognizant of it, they're making an effort, and then that begins to normalize it.
Hmm.
And so this is something that, just the normalizing of diversity without necessarily bringing attention, saying, okay, we're making this special case. It's just what it is.
Yeah.
Goth
Uh,
and
on a
industrial music includes all kinds of people.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. On a side tangent of that, I would love to sit down with you at some point and maybe have cocktails and have a conversation about the. We can discuss Thornton Mellon and the application of theoretical economics versus real economics. I don't know if do you understand the reference with that? Uh, Rodney Dangerfield in Back to School
Oh,
played
okay.
Thornton Mellon, and
Yeah,
because you teach, what
yeah,
you
yeah.
teach, it made me immediately think about that. And like, there's what we teach, and there's the real world of it, and
Right.
I'm like, oh my god, I think we should sit down and have a
Well,
viewing of that and discuss the finer nuances.
well, my undergrad and my master's degree are in economics, so I'm trying to think of like who is Mellon? What theory did he do?
You're like, oh, yeah, I don't. What school of thought is that?
Yeah.
There's a great scene in that movie. And I don't know if you remember where he's talking to his class. Or he's in class.
Mhm.
He's gone back to college for his kid,
Right, right.
and the instructor is talking. And the instructor's business economics, and so he's talking about like, well, so here's all the costs, and Mellon's like sitting back and he's laughing at him. He's like, well, would you have something to say? And he's like, well, yeah, how much are you bribing the judges, and how much are you paying off the guy who does the zoning, and then there's there's the Teamsters union and all the other. He's
Right.
like, you haven't covered any of the actual bills
Yeah.
involved with building a building.
Right.
My family does concrete work, and I was like, this sounds eerily familiar.
Yeah.
So yeah, on that note.
So on that note, um, thank you for taking your time to speak with me. This has been
Thank you for
enjoyable.
asking.
Um, I'm sure we'll have some viewers,
I hope so.
more than two.
And
Yeah.
I, I'm going to say that so theoretically, immediately after we stop talking, I will be DJing. I have no
Yes.
idea what I'm going to play. It's going to be in a very interesting time because right now it is Tuesday night,
Hmm.
and tomorrow is inauguration day.
Right.
I am personally curious to see how that is going to inform
Yeah.
and shape my opinion of things and how I select my music for Thursday night. So
Well,
I wish us both the best of luck.
the last time this happened was the night of the Georgia vote,
Yeah.
and so the interview was recorded before we knew the results, and we were like, well, let's hope this goes well. So um, we have a one for one track
Let's
record on
yeah.
that right now.
Let's see what happens. Could be meat, could be cake, as the saying says. I don't
Yeah.
know. But yeah, I'm curious myself. I hope we are celebrating when this goes off the air and we go into the show.
Yep. So look forward to jumping into your stream in a few minutes.
Thank you
So,
for having me.
all right, thank you.